Good evening. Welcome to the Town Council Chambers, January 6, 2014, 7 p.m. Please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. Agenda item number 2, roll call, please.
Councilor Krasko?
Present.
Councilor Clements?
Present.
Councilor Langevin?
Present.
Councilor Manna?
Present.
Councilor Marcucci?
Present.
Councilor Moriarty?
Present.
Councilor Nicola?
Present.
Councilor Peliquin? We don't know? Okay. Councilor Vandal?
Present.
8 present.
Thank you. Agenda item number 3, consider and accept the Town Council meeting minutes of Monday, December 16, 2013. I have a motion.
So moved. Second.
Any discussions or changes? Seeing none, show of hands. Only abstention. Thank you. Moving on to subcommittee reports. A, General Government. Councilor Nicola.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have no minutes to read, and I have no meeting scheduled at this time, but I will be calling a meeting for the signed bylaw review.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Councilor. B, DPW. Councilor Vandal.
No report, no meeting scheduled. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. C, Education and Human Services. Councilor Marcucci.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. No report, no meeting scheduled, but while we're on this, we are going to, probably within the next 2 weeks, start our first meeting for the Town Manager Search Committee. And through you, Mr. Chair, I was wondering, previously when we did the Town Manager Search Committee, we always came back to council and presented some minutes for the council and for the citizens so they'll know where we are and informational. So I'd like to, if you're okay with it, add another subcommittee report, which would be F, and read off some quick minutes.
Absolutely, no problem, Councilor.
Thank you.
And in the future, I will, our next previous agenda is coming down the road. It'll be a line item right in there constantly for that, so you can just
Okay.
review.
Thank you.
D, Planning and Development. Councilor Clements.
No meeting minutes and nothing planned at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. E, Protection of Person and Property. Councilor Moriarty.
There are no meeting minutes to read at this point, and no meeting currently scheduled.
Thank you. So you have something now or no? In the future, okay. Yep. Moving on to agenda item number 5, Chairman's announcements. Just the only thing I have tonight really is just to remind the public, again, our bylaw on shoveling the sidewalks now that the winter's around and stuff. I'd appreciate if everyone would follow the bylaws, and I would ask the police chief to make sure that they're going around regularly and enforcing our bylaws so the citizens that are walking can get around freely and safely. And that's all I have tonight. 6, Town Manager's announcements. Sanois.
Thank you. I just have one. The Southbridge Water Department wins Water Fluoridation Quality Award for the 7th year in a row. The award was presented to the Southbridge Water Department by the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention and the Massachusetts Department of Public Health. The award is given out annually to public water systems that adjust the fluoride concentration of their drinking water, achieve a monthly average fluoride level that is in the optimal range for 12 consecutive months in a year, and document their fluoride level in CDC's water fluoridation reporting system managed by the CDC. Consistent high-quality water fluoridation practice, as demonstrated by the Southbridge Water Department, is a safe and effective method to prevent tooth decay, improve the oral health of community residents of all ages, and the town's water facilities are operated by Whitewater Incorporated. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Agenda item number 7, swearing in presentations. We have none this evening. Agenda item number 8, citizens forum. If there's any citizens that would like to come tonight and speak on something that's not on the agenda, please state your name and address, please. Good evening.
Good evening, Heather Truchon, 319 Main Street in Southbridge. I come before you tonight with a very serious issue. The traffic in between, I want to say Hamilton Street to Central Street, the traffic issue with being able to cross the street there is virtually impossible. And I'm not just talking about having my children dropped off in front of my house. I have a kindergartner, I have a special needs child, so the bus has to drop off right in front of the house. You have the crosswalks, the center one, which people completely avoid. They park on it. It's impossible to cross. If you go down to the one on Main Street, that's corner of Elm and Central, you run the risk of either getting hit with the turning lanes, either coming down Main, turning onto Elm, and again on Central Street, coming up and turning onto Main. If you go up to the other crosswalk where you push the button, you still run the risk of getting hit there too, because nobody stops for the red light where the Friendlies is, and you still worry about the people coming up Main Street and turning onto Hamilton. Now, I did reach out to Councilor McNicola. We did have a conversation. She did get in touch with Mr. Charette. He did send an officer over to view the situation as I'm trying to get my children off the bus safely. Even with the crosswalk, my daughter crosses on the center crosswalk, even with the bus signal out, there's been times when, right when the officer was there and I explained the whole situation to him, not only did somebody stop on the crosswalk, but because someone came flying down Main Street to make a turn onto Elm Street, and the officer had to point to him and have him pull over, right in front of the officer. Now, I'm not sure if either we're just giving a written warning or a verbal warning or what, I don't know what came of that. But there is a serious issue, and my concern is not just my children. I really strongly feel it's not a matter of if somebody is going to get hit at this point. It's going to be a matter of when, and whether it's going to be an adult or a child. Because people do not stop in that area, specifically between the Hamilton Street, Central Street area. And that's what my biggest concern is right now. I mean, I don't know what can be done about it, but something really needs to be done, and I don't know what else to say.
Thank you. Councilman.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank
Chair,
you.
through you. I would like to actually thank Ms. Truchin for coming and bringing this to the attention of the town council. I have sat at that red light where she's talking about at Friendly's and Hamilton Street, and I have watched people, when I'm trying to take a left onto Main Street, I have watched people come down or fly up and just go right through, just totally ignore that light like it was never there. And I pause now. I will not go when the light turns green. I pause and I look both ways just because of that. And that really, really should be looked into. Thank you.
Thank you. Since the chief is in the audience, Chief, do you have anything that you would like to add to this, please, on this situation, particular situation of how we can move forward and stuff like that? I don't know if you wanted to come up to the mic and speak on this behalf. Thank you, Chief.
I'm sorry, I was speaking with a lady in the audience about the concern. What did Councilor Manna say with it? I'm
Thank
sorry,
you.
Monique. We were just talking about that.
That's okay. I just wanted to, I thanked Ms. Truchin for bringing to the council's attention that light, especially at Main Street and Hamilton Street, right where she's talking about, right where Friendly's is. I'm on Hamilton Street after I get my daughter from school, and I get stopped at that light right there. And I have seen multiple times, multiple times, cars flying up Main Street, going through that red light, or coming down Main Street. And I won't go. As soon as that light turns green, I'll pause and I'll look both ways just because I'm afraid that I'm going to get hit. And it is an accident waiting to happen.
Yeah, we've had the concern with, in particular, in the center of, by Chapin is what the young lady was talking about. So we've had officers there, and we'll continue to enforce it, absolutely rigidly. So.
Excuse me, thank you. Councilor Clemens.
Thanks. And then Kathy, too. Do you think that perhaps, and I don't know how this would affect the actual traffic flow, but I feel that part of the concern is that because people know that it's a right on red after stop, which we know that's minimal these days, it seems to be after slowing down a little, that they come through our intersections quicker in the very center of town there, and perhaps, because I've seen it happen too, where they're just moseying down because they know they're turning right. They know they're coming up and flying right, they're coming down and flying right, and therefore they're not as mindful about the intersection at Chapin. I understand completely what you're talking about there, very dangerous to cross. But I'm wondering if perhaps those corners, those lights should have the sign that says, no red turn, right on red. Perhaps that would do
I hate
something.
to just guess, but we've had issues like this before, in particular when we decided to turn the light on at the base of the Main Street Hill, the one by Friendly's,
Right.
that had been on flashing for so long. So what we literally did is we spent a few days there monitoring it and literally doing a check sheet on those kind of things. So I think maybe it's time that we do that again. I think perhaps the dynamic of the building being closed on the corner there, it's funny how when all of a sudden there's not as much traffic coming out of everything, people will sometimes all of a sudden just start going a little quicker. So I don't want to just guess at it. Let me do it. We'll take a look at it, and I should be able to give you some sort of answer by the next council meeting as to what we can do with it.
Just adding on to that, because what I see a lot of times is cars will be stopped because the red light stops everybody. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a slowdown, you know that, but you're seeing on the sides those cars coming down that are saying, oh, I'm going to turn right, so I'll just keep going
that,
while they're
you know,
stopped.
that may be
And
part of
when
the
you go to that
equation, yeah.
crosswalk, especially where there is no crossing light,
Right.
people are going right past it because they don't have to stop. They've got a right turn. You know, they're in the middle of the street. They're headed to the intersection. So that's a concern for me.
Let us take a look, and we'll come back and give you our best answer for it.
Okay.
Okay.
Councilor Carrasco.
Yes, I want to thank Ms. Truzan for coming also and speaking. It is a very serious concern because right there, I believe it's the crosswalk between Main Street and Hamilton, Chapin, going towards Chapin?
Yeah.
Chapin.
That is a very dangerous intersection. Nobody ever stops for pedestrians. I know earlier in the summer, I think everybody on the council made a plea to the public in regards to, watch your driving. I was going to speak about it during my councilor's forum, but now that we're speaking about kind of this traffic issue, I know West Street is kind of a disaster for pickup. I pick up my son at West Street, and we got people parking where they're not supposed to, and pulling out, and it's crazy. So I don't know I know it's putting more on
No,
your
I
plate.
had spoken with the
so-
schools just prior to the break, and we were primarily looking at the handicap, but we can look at that also.
Yeah, it's scary because I have my two twins trying to cross. It's tough. It's tough. But that's all I have. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, so Chief, I appreciate you coming
Certainly,
up. As soon
yeah.
as you can get back to us on this,
Sure,
because it is
sure.
a serious issue, and I mean, quite frankly, some of it might be, again, enforcing. Send a
Well,
message.
the Main Street in
and
particular, we really hit it hard prior to the holiday, but, we started up again today, so.
enforcing, and really, I believe the other piece of it is how to educate, and I don't know if we can, through our cable access or something. I mean, I know it sounds silly. This is driving 101, really.
Well,
But
In this particular instance, I've got to say, I think most folks know what they're supposed to do.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll just help them re-educate.
thank you, Chief.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chair,
Certainly, go ahead, Counsel.
this is awful, living in this town all these years, but I don't know. We don't have sandwich boards on those crosswalks, do we?
No, sometimes in the summer, we'll either put barrels, we've got different posts, we've tried different things like that. I've purchased sandwich boards for some of the schools. We work very closely with Head Start this year. They started up at the old high school on Cole Ave. We help them out with that kind of thing. But in the winter, we don't.
Do you think that they do slow traffic down at the crosswalks?
I think they do. I think it catches your attention that there's something there. We could certainly try between the plowings, you know.
Yeah. that's
We could
probably-
try it.
okay.
We've actually put some up in Hamilton Street before. That particular street was so narrow, they didn't last more than a
Yeah.
couple of days.
Yeah,
But we could certainly try.
thank you. That's all.
Thank you, Chief.
Paul Zotto, 60 Charlton Street. I've had this idea for a while, and I was planning to bring it to the DPW at the appropriate time. But since she brought it up and the chief's here, my idea was that we get those great crossing guards that we have at our schools, who've done a great job for years. They're very low priced. I think they're getting minimum wage. And these crossing guards work till about 9 o'clock, and then they're off till 3 o'clock, 2 o'clock when school is back in session. So maybe 3 of those crossing guards could come uptown. They're on the payroll anyway. Maybe they'd get a few more hours. Maybe we could hire a few more crossing guards. And I don't know, we lost some crossing guards at the old high school. I don't know if they have any up at the new high school, but maybe somebody lost their job. And to have a crossing guard in the middle of Main Street, where the youth center is, and to have a crossing guard absolutely at CVS, because there's not even a crosswalk up there. And that is where 90% of the town crosses and 90% of the town walks and drives in and out of CVS and Dunkin' Donuts, and there's nobody there. That is beyond an accident waiting to happen. So we've never had a problem with crossing guards. They do a really good job, and that's kids. Downtown, we have children, we have elderly, we have handicapped, we have scooters, we have crutches, we have all kinds of situations. You know, I lived downtown for 5 years, and believe me, there was many nights that somebody couldn't stop, or I couldn't stop, or I slipped on the ice, and it's very scary, and that's why people stop going to those stores. It just isn't safe. And, you know, if you say it's to pedestrians, everybody who drives is going to come up here and say, no, we're right, the pedestrians are wrong. No, we need crossing guards that know our people, know our drivers. These trucks that go through down, they're the same people every day, you know. And once we nail them once, they know the rules. They will stop even though if they can turn red. But to have 5 or 6 jobs, and some of them they're already working for us, and to have some crossing guards downtown, friendly, know where the stores are, know where's a good place to park, and can help us cross the street. Because, you know, I've chased parades for 12 years, and I'm having trouble crossing those streets, and I'm pretty quick. But I'm having a hard time, guys. Sometimes those lights downtown are too bright, and sometimes it's too dark down there, especially right when the sun is going down. It's almost impossible to see. You got these cars that come down Main Street, and they know they can turn up Elm, and they go even faster. Some look like they're going 30 miles an hour, and they're supposed to stop and then go right, but they don't. They just go. And that's scary, you know, because someone's going to step out in that middle crosswalk, and there's no one to help them. And if there was one of those great crossing guards with a little sign just waving, in 3 months, it'll all be solved. And there's 3 jobs downtown that even the merchants would maybe want to get behind and help support, because it's really going to help people get in and out of those stores. It really is. I've talked enough. But, you know, chew on it. Think about it. I should have brought this to DPW, I know. But the minute she said it, I went, why am I sitting on this idea? You know, those crossing guards, I don't think we've ever had a problem. They're really great, you know. And what do they do between 9 o'clock and 2 o'clock? Have them come uptown. But, you know, it's not a bad idea. You know, so think about it. It's jobs for Southbridge. It would really be great if we could come up with some jobs for some people. Jobs that keep people safe. It's win-win, everybody. Thank you. My name is Paul Zotos. And let's hire that manager. Do a good job.
Good evening.
John Pulaski, Old Woodstock Road. I don't want to belabor this point, but I got to say it, especially after the last meeting. This is, the beginning of the year, time that people make new resolutions and the like. I'd like the council. Now we have a fresh start. We have a new council, a new manager, although he may be here temporarily. There was a lot done with the last temporary town manager. It's something that I just can't let go of. I lost a relationship with someone 17 years. She said I left her for 2 billion pounds of trash. To some degree, it's true. It just didn't know, it really, because I saw what the garbage did to a town in Plantation, Florida. Okay, so the deal's done. The trash is coming. It's there. It's almost filled up. I've looked at all the tapes. I don't want to come up here and be wrong or, absolutely the president of Casella said without expanding the landfill, we'd be getting about $108 million before it was closed, around the time it was filled up. It's almost filled up. And, $108 million is a lot of money. And I saw you folks make incredible effort at the last meeting to save this town about $20 a day in gasoline fees. And you should be applauded for that. I mean, to watch I know you can't watch every nickel and dime, but you're watching about $20 a day in gasoline for the temporary town manager. And I know it wasn't just like a political promise of $108 million. Even Ms. Karen Harnois, I know you wouldn't, I think it was March 6th of 2007. I know you're not going to just make political promises. You're going to do your homework. You assured the council that they'd get $4.3 million a year if they have voted for it that night. And I'm sure you were getting those assurances from Kopelman and Page. I mean, I know it, even though I haven't talked to you about it. I'm sure you were assured that we were getting that kind of money. And Kopelman and Page is a very powerful law firm in this state. They represent over 100 towns. And the way I look at it, even last year, first time we got over $2 million, you made all that effort to save this town $20 a day. We're losing about $20,000 a week over just the difference between the best year, the $2.4 million, and what was promised. And I think Kopelman and Page, just to save their reputation, could hunt that money down for us. And you wouldn't have to raise the taxes the way you do. I'm sure none of you enjoy raising taxes. And that was a promise. Now, we had recent discussion of possibly closing the airport and having to pay the feds back the money for that to allow this to go, but we're not getting the money that was promised. So I know I sound like I'm talking out both sides of my mouth. No, I don't want 405,000 tons of trash to be brought to this town every year, but it's happening, so why can't we get paid what we were promised? There's no two-phase, like maybe we'll get $108 million if we expand. No, it's very clear. It's up on YouTube. It's easier to see the visual and the speaking and even the body language. The president of Casella, the lawyer that was representing this town, we're entitled to that money. And I really hope that we can have an old lang syne, forget about who said what 5 years ago or the political infights. Let's get the money that this town is entitled to. We've got a new leadership team. I'm not saying the old leadership team. No, there's a lot of things. I'm just saying we've got a new leadership team, and this is a great time to do it. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Let's have a prosperous, creative new year in this town. I know we can do it. I know, and I got to say this real quick. I heard some nice old lady with a French accent. I love that because I used to hear that a lot as a kid. Don't hear it as much. I don't know where she got the idea. She said they used to do it up in New Hampshire. I don't know her name. I just overheard it over the holidays. That if this town, and especially with Mr. DiGregorio's work, with all those decorations and the work the Clemenses and other people, and I'm sorry if I missed anyone, that they do to make this town look great. And there's 12 days of Christmas. Yesterday was the 12th day of Christmas. One thing I love about the Europeans, like the Polacks, they celebrate Christmas into the middle of January. And it's nice. They start advertising Christmas around Halloween, and a lot of people start taking the decorations down the 26th. Maybe we can have a little bit of a Christmas village next year and almost actually promote it. Let's push the season a little deeper to draw people here. Maybe when I left this town 8 years ago, I left the Tri-Community. I came back to something different. Maybe we could do some along with Sturbridge, and tie in with that. But just an idea, the season. It's not my idea, so I don't deserve credit for it. But I think it's worth considering. Caroling and give people things to do, maybe even a little bit of a jobs program, have little elves walk around Main Street. But people would come to see that, because a lot of people have free time that time of year. Okay, thanks again. Thank you for your service to the town. Good night.
Thank you. Councilman Marcucci.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a comment on Mr. Palowski's comments. He is absolutely 100% correct in the statements he just made. And through you, I don't know if it's something that Ms. Harnois can look into. I don't have a problem calling Kopelman and Page myself and have them dig up the minutes and/or any contractual paperwork that they may have in reference to that. But he is right when he makes the case of, you know, we're trying to save $20 a week and we've got millions of dollars that I know through the process that I was involved in and what the promises were that Casella has reneged on. So I really would like to follow through with that. And I'll talk to you later about it. Maybe we can do something jointly. Okay? Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Certainly. Is there any other citizens that would like to speak tonight? Any other citizens? Seeing none, we will move on to agenda item number 9. Vote to ratify the employment agreement between the town of Southbridge and Robert Reed as the acting town manager to perform the duties specified in the agreement effective January 2nd, 2014 through June 30th, 2014.
So moved.
Second.
Just quickly for discussion's sake, first of all, I apologize for not being at the last meeting because I was out of town, but I did have a chance to review the tape, and I stand by what I said in the paper. As far as my feelings on this, I think Mr. Reed brings a lot to the table. Ms. Harnois has a full plate. It's budget season. If you do the math, the deal that he gave the town of Southbridge, the agreement, is a very good agreement for the town of Southbridge and the citizens of Southbridge. This is just a short term. If some of the councils have problems with the contract in the future for the new town manager, that's when we should be taking up this issue. But, so I felt it was very important. We owe the town of Southbridge more than what we did at the previous meeting. As Mr. Clark and other people said, we are a $50 million business. I respect everyone who's trying to save a penny here and there, but sometimes we've got to watch out where we're trying to save our pennies from. And I understand they all add up, but the bottom line is, and I've seen it in some past history, is, and I said it, is that whoever may be the next town manager for the town of Southbridge now with social media and stuff, all they have to do is pull up the tapes of those and look and go, I really don't want any part of that town, because that's the kind of message we sent the other day. So what I did is, and I felt it was very important, first of all, I did call Mr. Reed up and apologize because I really thought it was pretty much, I didn't even think it was going to come out that way. I was just stunned. I talked to him. He is definitely willing to come on, work the 6 months. He will be working more than the 20 hours a week. The agreement with the car, and I know that was the big, it really wasn't about the money for him, it was about the vehicle is, again, if we have a problem with the vehicle, I say with the next town manager, if we go down the road, that's when you look at it. But this is a vehicle that we already have that's sitting in the back, and if you really did the math, either let him use the vehicle or give him $150 a week. It's almost a wash. So I would respectfully ask my councilors, please, for the town of Southbridge to support this. We have a lot of work to do in the next 6 months to get the professional on board. And that's all I have to say on that matter. Is there any other questions? Councilor Pelquin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I feel like I'd like to address some of what you said relating to the way that the discussion happened at the previous meeting that you were in attendance. I didn't support the agenda item, and I know that for everybody else who didn't support the agenda item, it seemed to coalesce around the issue of the car, but I really want to specify that this was not my issue. And you mentioned the way that it looked if you watch it on social media and everything, and I agree, it looked really bad to have somebody come in and have that kind of discussion in front of the person, and I wish that it didn't happen that way. But I don't think that it happened that way because we're not considerate of the responsibilities that we have, but I felt that perhaps the time frame for the discussion was not what it could have been. I received the information about this person on the Thursday before the meeting, and I had a couple of days to look through it, and that evening was the first time that I had ever seen this person in my life, and I felt so removed from the decision process that I didn't feel comfortable supporting it. And if this is something that a majority of the council wants to do, then that's great, I'm all for it. I didn't feel comfortable supporting it that evening because I felt like there could have been more transparency within our body in terms of how these decisions were being made. And I didn't feel comfortable. And it's not to impinge on anybody, it's just, I feel like if I'm going to be supporting such a big decision in the future, I'd like to have a little bit more time with the decision to know that I personally feel comfortable that it's the right decision to make. Thank you, that's it.
Anyone else have anything? Councilor Nicola.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Not that many years ago, this situation occurred, and it was the same exact situation, same exact results. At that time, we had determined that we would no longer do this that way, that when you see that an item is an employment agreement or a contract, that really should be a time to sit down in executive session with the counselors and go through the agreement or the contract and make your inquiries or your objections known at that time. It shouldn't be something that you subject the person to that you're planning on hiring or not hiring to sit in the audience and be treated that way. Whether this is a considerate counsel or an inconsiderate counsel, it's an inconsiderate thing to do. And it had no business being held that way. I'm hoping in the future we will not do that again. I'm not going to participate in it again. I won't. This is the second time. I was totally embarrassed for this council. Whether people on this council were happy with themselves, that's up to them. I was embarrassed as a member of this council for the way the meeting went through, and I won't participate in anything like that again. That's not the place. Here is not the place for that. I don't think that the citizens of this town really turn on the TV to see, to be entertained. And if they do, shame on them. We're the people who try to, work for the community. This isn't, the comedy hour. And it's not appropriate for that kind of behavior to be going on the way it went on at the last meeting. So I'm hoping that in the future we will go back to the way we've done it, where when we have something like this, we sit in executive session, discuss it, and then bring it forward. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Anyone else? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Councilor Clements?
Yes.
Councilor Langevin?
Yes.
Councilor Manna?
Yes.
Councilor Marcucci?
Yes.
Councilor Moriarty?
Yes.
Councilor Nicola?
Yes.
Councilor Peliquin?
Yes.
Councilor Vandal?
No.
Councilor Krasko?
Yes.
Yes? Okay. 8 yes, 1 no.
Thank you, councilors. I will notify Mr. Reed so we can get him up and running quickly and efficiently and continue with our council business. Thank you again. Moving on, number 10, vote to approve the proposed bylaw changes as prepared by the Bylaw Review Committee and approve at General Government Subcommittee meeting on November 25th, 2013. This the final reading, we will be reading the whole thing out. So I need a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion on this? Councilor Clemens.
Well, thank you. You comment about reading the whole thing out, but I read the memo from Attorney Caprara in
Sorry,
regard
yes.
to procedure. I guess I'm asking, I don't want to say, I would assume that we are complying with some of what he has suggested here in terms of his research into the rules for making sure things are posted and whether we've uploaded the copies and the changes to our website, like we talked about doing the last meeting also, and there were a whole lot of changes that were being made, and to try to read all of these bylaw changes would be probably an entire evening, 6 to 8 hours maybe even. And according to his memo, it sounded very clear to me that it was possible to cover everything we need to as a legal body to make sure that the public knows what we're doing or what's being, the intent of what's being done. Obviously, discussion, he did suggest that people from the committee be here to discuss some of the changes in general. But as far as the reading of the full text, it made it sound like we would be covered from not having to fully read that text as long as we posted everything on the internet, in public places, the town hall, available to the people to come and see any changes that are being done. Is this all, is this the way we're proceeding, or will we expect to be here for a long reading at the next meeting?
No, I expect to go by our attorney's wishes, which they do make sense. I asked Ms. Hinois if we could make sure we definitely reach out on the internet and cable access and just inform the public, and that's a priority that needs to happen as soon as possible, so we can get it up and running. So again, the public has enough time to look over the changes. That way, if they have any questions or something like that, so I'd appreciate that. Councilor Manna.
I believe Councilor Peliquin had her hand up before me.
Sorry about that, Councilor Peliquin.
Thank you. I have a couple of questions about the attorney's recommendations about how we can make the bylaw review committee recommendations more transparent. I'm not really sure what our progress is at this point on going through those recommendations. The first one was prior to the date of the first reading, make available in the clerk's office the old version, the new version, and the marked up red line version showing the changes. I don't know if this is at the clerk's office already, or if we just intend to put it there, but if it's not at the clerk's office already, I'm not really comfortable going through with approving the second reading at this point, because I want the public to have as much time with this as possible. I don't know whether or not the 3 versions that should be available in the clerk's office have been uploaded to the website or not yet, and if they're not there, I don't really feel comfortable voting yes on a second reading tonight for the same reason. I don't know that I've seen these hanging conspicuously anywhere around Town Hall or at the library. And then I don't know how clearly we've described the proposed vote on the town council agenda for open meeting law purposes. It just says vote to approve the bylaw changes as prepared by the bylaw review committee. And I know that there's, at least previously, if Attorney Caprara's recommendations 1 through 4 haven't been completed yet, there's been people who've been asking me for copies of the bylaw review committee's report. I had asked the town manager's staff if they could give me an electronic copy of this information so that I could forward to it to people who'd wanted to read it via email, but I hadn't actually received one, and that's my own fault for not following up, so I will do that. But until these recommendations have been done, I don't feel comfortable doing a second reading yet, because I want people to know what we're voting on before we get to the third reading, and then that's it. And then if people show up with questions at the last minute, it feels like they don't have the time that they need to have them addressed. And I want to make sure that everybody knows what we're doing. So that's my concern. So, thank you.
On your concerns, and I do understand what you're saying with the holiday breaks and stuff, but I really believe that we can still proceed forward, because our next meeting is going to be the 27th. That's why I said to Ms. Hinois, please get this up efficiently as possible, because they're going to have, the public will have about 2.5 weeks to digest this if we move forward. I just feel like we're not getting business done. We're just stalling and not going anywhere. I understand your concerns. I respect your concerns, and that's why I would like Ms. Hanois to move forward with this as quickly as possible so we can have those documentations in the town clerk's office, on the internet and stuff like that. But our final reading would be, the 27th would be our next meeting.
I would just like to say, I understand that the next meeting is on the 27th, and that is 2.5 weeks from now, but the attorney had recommended that these be done before the first reading, and it's after the first reading now. We're at the second reading now, and I don't know that they've been done yet. And if he'd recommended to do it before the first reading, then that's at least 6 weeks in which people have a chance to read this. And I know that you could go in and do a mass public records request from the manager's office to get a paper copy, but given the size of the document, I don't want to have to make somebody have to do that to be able to read it. And I also personally don't have the time to sit down and scan this in my computer at home because of the size of the document. And I don't feel like we should approve it tonight if these recommendations from the attorney haven't been followed, because we wouldn't be following our own legal advice that we pay good money for. And I understand that I want to get business done just as much as everybody else, which is why I'm kind of disappointed that if Attorney Caprera said that this should have been done prior to the date of the first reading, I don't know why it hasn't been done, if it hasn't been. Because I think it's very, very important that I'm not operating in a vacuum. If there are people in the community that have issues with what's in here, and I have to say, I'm still kind of confused about some of the issues in here. There's language in here that I still have concerns about. And I know that I would have fewer concerns about it if other folks in the community whose opinions that I know are really good opinions have all had a chance to be able to read this and to give me feedback, I would feel a lot more comfortable voting on this, personally.
Thank you. Councilman Manna.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. I agree with Councilor Peliquin in feeling uneasy with the second reading, although I do agree with the changes in the bylaw, the bylaws that they wanted to make. If you read bullet point number 6, at the next 2 meetings, have a representative of the Bylaw Review Committee, again, give a sufficient explanation of the proposed changes, or if the chairperson of the town council is comfortable to explain the changes, such an effort should be done in an efficient way. This is done in lieu of a full word-for-word reading. But in the second to last paragraph, he writes, the concern is that in the future, a person may contest the legitimacy of the revisions based upon the claim that we didn't follow the explicit requirement for 3 readings. Our counter-argument will then be that we took great pains to notify the public. And that right there concerns me. I just got this email in my packet Thursday. So it's dated December 2nd, though. So to get it in January, a month later, I mean, I do also have a concern. I don't have a concern with the changes. I have a concern with the readings and the recommendations that our town attorney made to us, which I will say also that we do pay good money for, and we should, take his advice, I believe. So, and that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Council. Councilor Clemens.
Thank you. Also, I have no problem with a postponement on the second reading, and not taking no action on the agenda item or whatever we would like to do on that. Because I also feel strongly, as Councilor Peliquin and Councilor Manna, that in the very least, we should follow from here on out. I know we discussed this at the previous meeting. I believe it was the previous town manager's intent to get it out there because we talked about making sure that it was publicized. Perhaps it has been, but because we don't have clarification as to whether after this December 2nd note was done, whether it's actually been uploaded, been put in the town clerk's office, all that. I would feel comfortable going forward with second and third reading, but not at this moment. First reading, I think, we basically put it out there, so people knew it was happening. Now I think we need to just make sure everything is crossed and dotted. And I don't think it's hampering moving forward, because I do feel we don't do a lot of that anymore. But in this case, I also don't have problems. I think the changes are minimal. There's a few good things that have been cleaned up, and I applaud the committee. But I just think that the actual reading could wait an extra meeting to finish the final, to get the next reading and then the last one in. So just my opinion, but I do think we should follow our attorney's advice on this. Thank you.
Anyone else? Councilor Nicola.
Thank you.
I agree that we are not following any of this, it seems. I am concerned about the fact that when I opened my packet and saw that this was dated December 2nd, and our last meeting was December 16th, where was this for 2 weeks prior to that meeting? Would have been nice for it to have been in the packet then, prior to December 16th's meeting. That's one. And two, we don't have anybody here from the Bylaw Review Committee. But in having done similar things like this in the past, that's how it is done. Somebody from the Bylaw Review Committee should be here to go over this. And they should go over this once. And then if there are people out there that are interested in this, and I have to say that that's kind of a surprising thing, considering I've had many general government meetings on this Bylaw Review Committee, and there have been no concerned citizens that have shown. But if they're out there, it should be made available to them prior to us doing a second reading. So I agree with the previous speakers on that point. But I really feel that we should have a member of the Bylaw Review Committee here for the reading so that they can answer questions if there are any questions from the citizens or councilors. I know that Mr. Laporte was gracious enough to come to the last General Government Subcommittee that this was where we discussed this, but there weren't concerned citizens at that meeting, and it was posted. So I just want to make sure that that's also out there. Thank you.
Thank you. Certainly.
Our clerk of courts here, or being a clerk in town hall. It is online, and it is in her office. She just made a phone call. So it is out there.
Okay. If this is the will of the council, we can make a motion to postpone this. I'm looking for a motion.
Motion to postpone until next meeting, to postpone the second reading to the next town council meeting.
I'll second that.
Any other discussion on that? So a motion to postpone this until our next meeting, the 27th. With no other discussion, roll call, please.
Councilor Langevin?
Yes.
Councilor Manna?
Yes.
Councilor Marcucci?
Yes.
Councilor Moriarty?
Yes.
Councilor Nicola?
Yes.
Councilor Peliquin?
Yes.
Councilor Vandal?
Yes.
Councilor Crosco?
Yes.
Councilor Clemens?
Yes.
9 yes.
Thank you, councilors. Moving on to agenda item number 11, Council's Forum. Councilor Carrasco.
I just have one additional thing. I addressed the public during citizens forums in regards to the pedestrians and driving. The only other thing I want to wish the Hispanic community, Feliz Dia de los Reyes, Happy Three Kings Day. It's a holiday that's being celebrated today. So I hope the Three Kings brought many presents to many little ones. Thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you, Council. Councilor Moriarty.
Thank you. I had a number of phone calls over the last couple of weeks regarding the shoveling and the bylaws and that sort of thing. And in particular, there's one area that's been brought up by a couple different people is the sidewalk in front of the parking lot between Country Farms and Pizza Chef on Hamilton Street. And apparently that's not pretty much ever cleaned out, according to the phone calls I had. I made a point of going by there this morning and did see that it was quasi-clear how much of that was from being cleared out versus the rain and the weather. I don't know. But I did have a number of phone calls just in regards to the shoveling bylaws and whether or not we're enforcing those. So just kind of wanted to put that out there. And secondly, Saturday, January 25th, we'll be doing the chili cook-off and Minute to Win It and Trivia Night down at the Knights of Columbus. The chili cook-off starts at 5, the trivia night, game night thing starts at 7, $5 cover for all ages, and all the proceeds go for the fight against cancer. Thank you.
All set, Council? Councilor Nicola?
I have nothing this evening, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Palquin?
A couple different things, but I'll be brief. The first thing is I'd received a number of different phone calls and messages from folks this afternoon about various issues relating to council business, and it was a very busy, hectic afternoon at my house. I'm a full-time primary caregiver for 2 children who are preschoolers, and if you call me on a Monday afternoon regarding something about a council meeting that's going to be happening this evening, I just want to tell people that there's a chance I will not be able to get back to you. So I will get back to everybody who did get in touch with me today as soon as I can. But generally, if you do try to get in touch with me and you don't hear back from me within a few days, please just call me again, because I have a lot of stuff that I am responsible for on any given day, and every once in a while things fall to the bottom of the pile. So, but if you're trying to get in touch with me and you haven't, just keep trying and eventually you will. And I wish I had more time to devote to public service than I do. The other thing, I have a couple of things that I wanted to tell you guys about in terms of thoughts in terms of how we move forward for how we do a couple of different things. The first is relating to liquor licensing. The Boston City Council, in its last session for 2003, passed a home rule petition to the state legislature. It was unanimous but for 1 vote. And the petition is asking the state legislature to let the city of Boston out of the provisions of the Alcoholic Beverages Control Act regarding the quotas for liquor licensing. And I know that this is an issue that I've spoke about in the past. I think that the population-based quotas for liquor licensing are unjust because they're based on a law from 1933 that stemmed as a result of, infighting between 2 different factions in Boston. Basically, the WASPs didn't like the Irish, and they wanted to be able to control liquor licensing because it was a discriminatory law, in my opinion. And because of that, places like Southbridge, who adopted the provisions of the Alcoholic Beverages Control Act, are really at a profound disadvantage in terms of economic development versus other communities that did not accept the legislation. Places like Sturbridge and Worcester locally don't have quotas for their liquor licensing because their local municipal boards never accepted the law. And I think that that's really not fair. I would like to provide this petition for everybody on the council to read and do some research on, although at the last meeting in which we discussed the local tax policy, in which I brought information to the meeting, I felt kind of guilty about how many paper copies I had made, and I don't know how I can go about distributing this information to you electronically without being in violation of the open meeting law. So I don't know if this is something that our town attorney could possibly look into for me. I don't know if I email everything out like the day before the meeting and then speak about it at the meeting and then bring 1 copy to give to the recording clerk to be attached to the minutes, if that would suffice for open meeting law purposes. But it feels like a colossal waste of my time and a waste of resources to make 10 different copies of something that I want to show everybody. So I don't know if that's something that somebody could maybe advise us on as a way to, still comply with the laws in terms of transparency, but still be able to share information regarding policy that we would like to work on. The other thing I'm interested in is talking about our goals and objectives for the upcoming budget season. And I know that this is a big area of contention historically on the council, the question of whether or not to use the royalties from the landfill enterprise fund to balance the annual budget Personally, this is something I do not support because I do not consider it to be a sustainable source of funding. And I don't know if this is something we can discuss before we actually go into the process of making up the full line item budgets for the departments. I would like to get a sense of what we want to do in terms of spending before we do that. And having gone through the budget process last year, it didn't really seem like there was space in that process for us to have those kinds of conversations. But given the controversy that we tend to have over our tax rates, I want to have a conversation about what we want our tax rates to be like before we go into the budgeting process. I think services are very important. I want to give everybody all of the best services that we possibly can, but I want to do it in a way that is fiscally responsible. And so I would like us to be able to have some conversation leading into the budget cycle about how we can go about doing that. And that's it. Thank you for your time. Thanks.
Thank you, Council. Councilor Vandal.
I'd like to take this opportunity to thank the Southbridge DPW team for keeping the streets in such a good shape that they were after the storm. I mean, the streets look great. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Manor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to say Happy New Year to everyone out there, all the citizens, and to my fellow councilors and Mrs. Harnois. I also would like to thank the DPW for the wonderful job they did with this last storm. I would also like to thank the fire department for putting out the warnings out there for slippery roads and whatnot. I would also like to thank the police department for enforcing the emergency snow ban. I can attest to the fact that they were on my street a couple of times, letting people know they need to have their vehicles on the correct side of the street. So they are out there enforcing that rule. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Clements.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just in response to Councilor Peliquin, it's my understanding, because I've asked about this, you cannot have debate amongst yourselves about a topic, but in terms of distributing information that could be brought up for agenda items or that type of thing, it's not a violation of the open meeting law. So if there's particular information, maybe not the actual document, perhaps, of what it is you'd like it to be, but if it's information in regard to that, it is research that I've done and asked questions on, that it's not illegal to discuss potential topics as long as you don't debate those topics and decide prior to a meeting amongst council members or elected officials as to what the outcome could be. But if you have something you want to propose, that's legitimate to do. That's why discussing agenda topics is legitimate to do also. Suggestions for agenda topics. You can certainly call the AG's office and ask them. They're pretty good about responding to those things. Okay, on snow. I meant to do this at the last meeting, and I forgot to. This is information I had a couple of people ask, one person in particular, in regard to snow removal and fire hydrants. And I was very concerned because I had been approached by a gentleman who was ill and was very concerned about this year removing snow from his fire hydrant that's been in front of his house forever. And I thought, well, there must be some way to get around this. Unfortunately, there isn't, because in our bylaw, I spoke with the fire department, and I spoke with the town manager and a number of others, and I just want to let people know it's not just shoveling your sidewalks, which is a bylaw, section 7-406, owners/agents of property abutting sidewalks required to remove snow, but within the paragraph of information in terms of removing that snow, there is a line that says, no owner or owner's agent of premises abutting on a public way shall allow any fire hydrant close to the property to be obstructed by snow. So basically, even if you don't live somewhere but you own that property, that fire hydrant is considered part of your responsibility. So if you are a landlord and you own a piece of property, if you're not going to clean it, you need to hire someone to clean it. If you are the property owner, and it's just like if you had a sidewalk in front of your house, even if there's no sidewalk but there's a fire hydrant, it is unfortunately your responsibility to get your neighbor, the Cub Scouts, I was told, sometimes will take on hardship cases and be out there for you. That might be a source of someone to help out with this particular owner, but I just wanted to make sure people realize it's not just the sidewalks that you're dealing with, but the fire hydrants, which are so important in the case of an emergency. If they can't get to your fire hydrant and they need water to put out a fire, obviously that's a problem. So it is unfortunate, but we are, those are the things you take on when you purchase a piece of property. Perhaps some people out there are looking to buy their first home. If you don't realize that in our town, and I'm sure it's like this in many towns, that the bylaw does state that you are responsible, and a lot of people don't realize exactly what they are. When they buy that house, they see their own property and their driveway, and they know they have to plow it, but you do have the responsibility of the sidewalk, and you also have the responsibility if you have a fire hydrant within your property boundaries, it is yours. So I'm hoping that this person has been able to convince his the neighbors that he's been around there for a long time with, that hopefully they're helping him out. But I thought that was really important to let people realize the snow bylaw. And other than that, Happy New Year to everybody. I look forward to a great new year with lots of progress here on council. Sincerely.
Thank you, Council. Councilman Marcucci.
I have nothing this evening. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Agenda item number 12, discussion of the next meeting date. Councilman Marcucci.
Monday, January 27th, 7 p.m., right here in the council chambers.
Thank you. Agenda item number 13, motion for adjournment. All in favor? Thank you, everyone.